Stone is cold, but tonight it almost feels alive under your fingertips. Run your hand along that gray, time-worn block beside you. See the shallow groove? It's no accident. A mason 700 years ago carved that subtle channel so candle wax drips would flow neatly away from the treads instead of pooling, betraying footsteps to an enemy listening in the dark. And just like that, welcome back to another midnight wander through history's quieter corners, where even a staircase knew how to keep secrets sharper than swords.
Hey, before we put a single boot on the first step, do me a favor. Tap the little thumb up icon if you love slipping into these historical rabbit holes, subscribe so you never miss our next moonlit detour, and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're listening. I'm always stunned to see just how global this sleepy caravan has become. Now draw the drapes, dim the lights, maybe crack the window for a hush of night air, and settle in. Because the staircase in front of us isn't just a passageway, it's a weapon. And tonight, you're about to climb one. Slowly, carefully, fingers gliding over chiseled clues most tourists never notice. First, breathe in that unmistakable scent, damp limestone and a whiff of old iron. Tower staircases swallowed the breath of torches, the stench of oil, the sweat of armored guards. Over centuries, it all baked into the mortar like ghostly seasoning. Each inhale is a postcard from the past. Feel how narrow the space is? That's intentional. Medieval architects weren't designing a comfy commute from basement to battlements. They were creating a bottleneck, tight, twisting, maddeningly uneven, where invaders would lose momentum, balance, and probably several teeth. Take one cautious stride upward. Notice how the central newel, that thick spine of stone, bulges, forcing you to hug the interior curve. If you're right-handed, statistically likely, that means your sword arm is jammed against the pillar, range shortened, swing cramped. Meanwhile, a defender descending has his right arm free on the broader outer arc, blade flashing like a scythe. That spiral direction, always clockwise as you climb, wasn't a stylistic choice. It was a death trap disguised as architecture. But here's the delicious twist. Not every castle chose the same spiral. Some Scottish keeps built mirror image stairs because their lairds were left-handed, weaponizing their own quirks. One fortress in France purposely alternated spirals at landings, so invaders who finally adjusted would find themselves clumsy again 2 floors later, like changing the rules mid-duel. Pause on the third step. Feel how it dips a fraction deeper than the others. Masons baked randomness into rhythm. 9 shallow steps, 1 sudden sink, 6 more gentle, then a sly rise to clip your toe. A stumbling knight in 60 pounds of plate echoes like a dinner gong. Clang, crash, curse, letting the garrison above prepare boiling oil or crossbow quarrels. To the garrison, the staircase was a talking drum, broadcasting enemy progress through timber and stone. Look up. That slit of darkness overhead? It's not just another twist. It's a murder hole, an eye in the ceiling. Defenders could drop rocks, sand, or scalding water. Oil was precious, water heated faster, and burned almost as well when superheated. The hole's edges are beveled inward, so missiles rebound unpredictably, ricocheting off helmets, magnifying chaos. Now, slide your hand along the outer wall. Feel the faint runic scratches? Sometimes soldiers carved tally marks, each line a day on duty or a drink owed. But more often, they're depth gauges.
little notches at knee, hip, shoulder height. In darkness, groping defenders used them like braille to know where they were on the spiral without lighting a telltale torch. Speaking of darkness, extinguish that mental candle we've been carrying. Imagine it's 1:13:23, raining hard, and you hear the outer gate splinter beneath a battering ram. You race up these same stairs, breath ragged, visor fogging, heartbeat drumming in your ears. Each step is a calculation. Slip, you die. Slow, you die. Panic, you die. That's how stairs became psychological warfare. Castles weren't content to stop you physically. They wanted to crush your nerve before steel met flesh. Let's climb again. The walls sweat. The air thins. Somewhere above, a hinge creaks. Was that a door or a ghost of one? Relax. This is boring history for sleep, remember? The ghosts are friendly. They just want you to keep moving, keep feeling the centuries under your boots. Halfway up, we reach a landing barely large enough for two men to pass. Listen, the acoustics change. Your breath echoes flatter, almost swallowed. That's because builders sometimes inserted resonance chambers, hollow pockets behind wallstones, to muddle sound, hiding the exact number of defenders. An invader might hear footsteps multiply, thinking a squad awaits when it's only one man tapping his shield. At hip height, embedded in the masonry, you spot a rusty ring. Pull it. Feel the grind of long idle gears? Somewhere higher, a trapdoor might slam shut, isolating intruders. Some rings released swinging beams like giant pendulums. Others tripped counterweighted steps that flipped into ramps, sending unlucky climbers tumbling back down in armored avalanches. Medieval engineers were equal parts architect and prankster, except the punchline was usually fatal. Step again. The temperature dips. Odd, right? Castles sometimes vented smoke from hearths into staircase hollows, turning this shaft into a chimney. Defenders knew the draft patterns. Attackers did not. A sudden gust could snuff torches, plunging strangers into blackness while locals navigated by memory alone. If you're enjoying this candlelit cardio, tap that subscribe bell. It's the virtual counterpart to a wall notch, your orientation marker in the maze of YouTube. Plus, it tells the algorithm overlords you want more midnight castle crawls. Back to the climb. We're near the top now, knees complaining, shoulders brushing stone. A final dirty trick awaits. The ceiling lowers so much your helmet scrapes. Why? Because bending forces a knight to raise his shield overhead, exposing ribs. Crossbowmen stationed at arrow slits could thread bolts into that sweet spot. Some stairheads even installed ankle-high thresholds one had to step over, freezing momentum at the worst possible second. But let's rewind. You're not a knight tonight. You're an architect's apprentice, lantern in hand, watching master masons debate these murderous subtleties. They squint at chalk sketches, argue angles, mutter Latin measurements. You realize castles were blueprints of paranoia. Every inch asked, how will this kill? How will this save? Safety and slaughter entwined like mortar and stone. Yet not all traps aimed outward. Lords mistrusted their own garrisons. Some staircases contained secret recesses where loyal guards hid behind panels, ready to ambush traitors ascending with ill intent.
In one Austrian keep, archaeologists found a hollow newel big enough for a child spy to perch, peering through pinholes at every pass. Politicking started on the stairs long before it reached the throne room.
Lean on the parapet now. We've emerged onto the turret walk. A salted wind licks your cheeks. Down below, the world sleeps. Up here, lanterns sway, casting molten gold across Merlins. Catch your breath. You've just experienced a living machine built to turn elevation into domination.
But we're not done, because the staircase is only one chapter in a castle's hidden playbook of architectural warfare. Next, we'll tiptoe into ceilings rigged to collapse, gardens that poisoned invaders under the guise of beauty, and banquet halls designed for acoustic espionage. Trust me, you haven't heard walls whisper until you've dined in one of those. For now, rest your back against the crenellation. Feel the heartbeat slow. Eyelids droop. Let the distant hoot of an owl stitch itself into your dreams. And when you wake, or if you're still awake and hungry for more, type "continue" below. I'll meet you at the base of another shadowed corridor, lantern ready, words sharpened. Until then, sleep easy, knowing that even the simplest stair under your modern apartment likely descends from a lineage of stone steps that once plotted murder with every curve. Sweet dreams, dear night wanderer. Picture yourself padding along a torchlit passage that smells like damp wool and oiled leather. A cresset crackles somewhere behind you, and sparks skate up the wall in tiny comets before vanishing. Ahead, the corridor kinks to the left, then to the right, and then, of course, dead ends against a slab of oak bristling with black iron studs. You blink, certain you've made a wrong turn, until you sense a faint draft brushing your ankles and realize the floorboards underfoot aren't boards at all. They're a lid. One wrong shuffle, and down you plunge into a coal-black oubliette so tight you'd struggle to lift your arms. Welcome to the other half of medieval vertical warfare. The drop-track floor, a sibling to the spiral stair, but far less polite about giving you a chance to fight back.
Before we pry open this trap door, quick roll call. If you're new here, I'm thrilled you decided to wander the castle at midnight with us. Hit that subscribe bell so you get a fresh key to every hidden passage we explore. Tap like if you can almost taste the grit of mortar on your tongue. And drop a comment sharing your favorite real-life trap you've ever visited. I read them all, and yes, I keep a list for future road trips. Now back to the wood beneath your boots and the secrets groaning beneath its grain.
The simplest drop floor worked like a balance beam. 2 planks pivoted on an iron rod. Defenders kept the near side weighted with a stone block hooked to a quick-release peg. Pull the peg, and gravity yanked the far end down, flipping an armored intruder into a pit often lined with stakes, or at least deep enough to snap a leg. Then the planks rebounded to level, ready to catch the next fool. Some castles installed sand-filled counterweights so the floor dropped slowly, just enough to send a thrill of terror through an attacker before the real plunge. You'd have a breath to recognize doom, maybe curse a bit, maybe scream, and then darkness swallowed the rest. Yet the genius of medieval architects wasn't merely building pits, it was hiding them amid patterns that lulled enemies into routine. A hallway might alternate stone tiles and oak boards for 20 safe paces, letting boots knock a steady percussion so minds settled. Then, right where torchlight guttered into shadow, identical planks hinged into nothingness. An attacker's ear registered the same drumbeat. The attacker's foot, however, met a treacherous drumhead. Down he went. Meanwhile, defenders above listened for the thud and the satisfying echo of steel clanging against rock, an acoustic receipt of success.
Slide your fingers along the nearby wall. Feel the decorative rosette carved into the stone? That little flourish disguised a thumb lever. Pull once, the drop floor resets. Pull twice, a latch in the ceiling clicks. Now a heavy beam swings down like a guillotine, perfect for disabling the fellow behind the first victim. Triple action traps were coveted because they transformed narrow passages into kill zones where 2 defenders could stall 50 raiders for hours. Contemporary military manuals, yes, they existed, advised garrison commanders to memorize the cadence of each mechanism, so friendly boots never became casualties. Apprentices drilled until pulling the correct lever felt as instinctive as crossing themselves a chapel. But let's step back from the engineering gore for a second and peek at the payroll. Someone had to design these mechanical nightmares, order iron from the smith, and hire carpenters patient enough to shave boards so precisely balanced you could trip them with a feather. Enter the castle's resident trickster, the master of defenses, often a stonemason with a mathematician's brain and a dramatist's soul. He negotiated contracts promising that if his contraptions failed, he could be lowered into his own pit. Talk about professional accountability. Yet records show many of these men lived long lives, consulted across kingdoms like star engineers today, their names whispered with the same awe modern gamers reserve for level designers. Imagine being his apprentice. At dawn, you'd climb scaffolding, hauling bags of sand to calibrate counterweights. By noon, you'd squat in candlelit crawl spaces, listening for squeaks that might betray a hinge's exile from perfect silence. And at night, you'd test the traps yourself, tiptoeing across floorboards that could open like hungry jaws if you mistimed a stride. Apprentices learned quickly to walk with the confidence of saints and the paranoia of thieves. Many refused to sleep in chambers directly above their own inventions. Others slept only there, trusting a good trap to protect their dreams. Let's press deeper. You reach a spiral stair descending from this passage. Yes, descending, because castles weren't solely vertical updrafts of doom. They also tunneled downward into cellars, cisterns, escape routes. This stair flips the rulebook. Its spiral is counterclockwise heading down, giving a retreating defender superior sword angle over pursuers. Torches sputter in iron sconces shaped like dragon jaws. The builder knew hot breath rises, so steps are shallow here. Quick footing outruns smoke if you set oily rags ablaze behind you. Rumor says some garrisons coated the walls with pig fat, then kindled it to create a flaming chute that forced enemies back up into waiting arrows. Porcine napalm, medieval edition. Halfway down, you spot a niche in the central pillar big enough to swallow a child. Slide inside. It's cramped, but you fit. Peer through the tiny eyelet at shin level. There's the stair. Above it, a narrow ledge hides a bucket of gravel rigged to tip when someone disturbs the trip line. The stones cascade, causing a climber to slip, and that's your cue. A footlatch pops the lowest 3 steps free, turning them into a slick stone slide. Anyone tumbling lands right in front of your peephole, perfect for a dagger thrust. Morbid, yes. Elegant, undoubtedly. But castles weren't constant carnage.
Most days those traps lay dormant while servants scurried with laundry and stewards tallied grain stores. Which begs a question nobody writes on tourist placards: how did the household avoid killing itself? The answer was choreography. Permanent staff memorized invisible safe paths. 4 paces along the blue-veined tile, pivot left at the lion gargoyle, never step on the plain board beside the wardrobe. For guests, the household staged subtle guides. A tapestry edge hung lower along the safe route. A rushlight illuminated the correct flagstone. Ignore those cues, and the floor might swallow both your dignity and your diplomatic mission. Of course, nothing foils a well-oiled death trap like changing taste in fashion. When wide hoop skirts and puffed sleeves became vogue, passages designed for lean chainmail silhouettes suddenly pinched noblewomen like grape presses. Records from Burgundy mention a duchess wedged so firmly between walls that masons had to chip away mortar while she fainted repeatedly. The incident prompted a costly remodel. Hidden panels now slid back to widen choke points during peacetime. It's the medieval version of software patches, security updates meeting user experience bugs. Speaking of updates, castles evolved with gunpowder. By the late 15th century, architects embedded slow-match fuses alongside stair foundations. A retreating garrison could light them and collapse entire flights behind them. Archaeologists found charred fuse grooves in Welsh keeps, leading from stairwells to barrels of damp-proof black powder sealed in clay. Not every lord dared such scorched stone tactics. Blow the wrong arch and your own great hall might sag. But the option sat there, humming potential like a loaded safeties-off musket. Step out of the stair's base into the undercroft. Breath condenses in the chill. Here, builders hid another devilish flourish: echo wells. These are round hollows bored into sidewalls at ear height. Speak softly, and your voice snakes through tunnels, emerging 3 stories above in the Lord's solar. Servants used them to relay coded warnings. 3 short words about visitors. A cough pattern about suspicious carts at the gate. A hostile scout who crept into the undercroft could never guess he'd just broadcast his presence to crossbowmen sipping mead overhead. Notice the floor again, now paved with irregular cobbles. Some protrude a shade higher. Step on one and nothing happens. Step on 2 in the right order and a distant bell chimes. An intruder alarm disguised as folkstone irregularity. It's the original 2-factor authentication. Physical location plus sequence knowledge. The moment the bell sounded, guards raced to choke points already rigged. They didn't waste time searching corridors. They knew where the enemy stood, on the deadly hopscotch of doom. And still, despite all that craft, castles fell. Human error outwitted stone cunning. A squire forgot to reset a trap. Rain swelled oak so pivots stuck. Rats gnawed rope until a counterweight misfired. The greatest weakness was boredom. Year after year of quiet lulled garrisons into sloppy habits. That's why manuals advised staging monthly surprise drills. Commanders ordered their own men to invade at midnight, testing whether mechanism sang or sulked. Failure meant fines, sometimes flogging, occasionally exile. No one wanted to be the guard who dozed while an unweighted trapdoor yawned uselessly beside charging mercenaries. But enough about grim duty. Let's wander into lighter mischief. Some lords commissioned practical jokes for honored guests. A showcase trap, primed but harmless. A banquet might end with the host guiding friends to a secret wine cellar. Midway down a stair, a step sank a hair. triggering hidden bellows that spat flour into the air, mimicking smoke. Guests shrieked. Musicians in alcoves struck triumphant chords. Servants carried in pastries shaped like little castles. Everybody laughed, except the one or two partygoers whose knees still knocked. These displays were PR stunts, proof the fortress was impregnable and its lord a witty maestro of both war and hospitality. Yet the line between jest and jeopardy blurred. Chroniclers record a Bavarian baron so enamored with staging surprise drops that he accidentally pitched his own cousin into the oubliette. The cousin survived, which became a running gag at subsequent feasts. But the baron died shortly after, poisoned wine, whispers said, leaving historians to wonder whether the trap or the embarrassment sealed his fate. In castles, as in chess, every clever move risked counterplay.
You're probably wondering, did common folk ever see these marvels? Rarely. Peasants delivering grain stayed in outer courtyards. Craftsmen summoned inside were escorted along safe, well-lit stairs. Legends of haunted keeps often began when a mason or minstrel wandered off route and vanished. Locals blamed spirits. The truth? One misplaced foot, one unprimed counterweight. Stone is unforgiving. But let's pause our grim tour for a mental nightcap. Hear that distant thunder? It's not weather. It's a festival cannon beyond the town walls. The castle isn't under siege tonight. It's celebrating a birth, a treaty, a saint's day. Torches bloom along battlements, turning murder holes into twinkling constellations. Children race across courtyards where, hours earlier, soldiers drilled. Even the traps seem to slumber, content to let laughter echo through their cavities. In moments like these, castles reveal another identity. Guardians of community, not just instruments of fear. The same staircase that splits skulls tomorrow will guide a bride to her wedding this Sunday.
Lean back against a cool pillar, eyes half closed as lute strings drift through arrow slits. Can you feel your limbs grow heavy? That's the castle's final, most subtle enchantment. It wears you down with fascination until exhaustion slips in unnoticed. Your mind climbs every staircase we've described, tests every lever, maps every echo, and somewhere along that labyrinth it finds a quiet landing and curls up. That's how boring history for sleep works. Seduction by detail until dreams ambush you like silent guards behind a hinge panel. So, if your eyelids weigh more than a portcullis right now, let them fall. The traps will reset by dawn, and I'll keep watch. But if you're bright-eyed and hungry for deeper corridors, ceilings that collapse like stage curtains, courtyards rigged as resonance amplifiers, libraries with pivoting bookshelves concealing panic stares, type continue and we'll march on. Either way, hit that like button before you drift. It tells the algorithm scribe in the tower that our midnight stories are worth archiving. You round a final bend, heartbeat steadying after that last booby-trapped stare, and a cool hush settles over the corridor, as if the castle itself has paused to listen. No smell of pitch here, no clank of chains. Just a faint sweetness, the surprising perfume of crushed juniper drifting up from somewhere below. Instinct whispers that anything pleasant in a war-engineered fortress is probably bait, but curiosity is a louder beast. So you push on, boot soles whispering across flagstones as smooth as river glass. Before we push deeper, Quick reminder, if you've ever walked through a historical site and secretly hoped a hidden panel might slide open just for you, smash that subscribe button like it's a loose castle brick. Hit like so the algorithm keeps the torches lit for fellow night owls, and share in the comments the creepiest hallway you've ever crept down. Now, nose full of juniper, nerves tuned like lute strings, let's discover why these stones smell like a forest after rain. The fragrance isn't some medieval potpourri. It's a security system. Juniper resin, when heated, releases pungent vapors that irritate the eyes and clog the throat. Somewhere ahead, defenders have tucked braziers inside chambers, ready to dump resin onto coals. The smoke billows down low, hugging the floor, forcing invaders to crouch and cough while archers above breathe freely through vents bored into the ceiling. Think of it as tear gas with a saintly scent, holy anguish delivered in waves. Chronicles from Bohemia record the Juniper Hour, a timed ritual during sieges. Guards packed resin bricks each dusk so any night assault walked into a pine-scented purgatory. Follow the scent and you find the source. Narrow slits in the skirting stones, each paired with a hidden flue rising to a loft where a single page boy can upend a bucket of smoldering chips. Even better, seasoned smoke blackens attackers' armor, making them easy targets for moonlit marksmen outside. Like all great traps, it's multi-tool misery, vision blur, lung sting, and involuntary camouflage. But juniper smoke works only if air can flow. So castle architects drilled tiny breath holes behind decorative rosettes, channeling drafts to siphon vapors toward the enemy. They measured airflow with feathers, releasing a downy plume and watching which vent inhaled first. Apprentices memorized the dance of feathers the way monks recite psalms. Routine, sacred, necessary. You duck beneath one such vent now, feeling the breath of the castle brush your cheek. Clever designers made these shafts double as listening tubes. Cup your ear and you catch distant murmurs, perhaps a weary sentry humming a drinking song 2 stories up. For defenders, every singing stone served as medieval CCTV. For attackers, each whisper was a confession delivered straight to the enemy. Step forward, and the corridor abruptly widens into a circular landing. A dais rises at center, odd since no throne room sits this deep inside a wall. This is a killing drum, a theater in the round built purely for ambush. Look up. The ceiling slopes inward like a shallow cone, the apex fitted with a hinged copper plate. Yank the ring, and heavy stones stored above clatter down the slope, ricocheting off walls, battering helmets, cracking collarbones. The design ensures no single rock falls straight. Each ricochet multiplies chaos, turning attackers into panicked billiard balls. Medieval architects drafted those angles with compass and wax string, checking trajectories by rolling goose eggs until they could smash one on every viable head height spot. Yet, the most diabolical part isn't the rain of granite, it's the echo. Builders lined the upper dome with fired clay bowls set mouth down, creating resonant chambers that amplified shouts into deafening roars. To a panicked soldier, the thunder of falling stones sounded like walls collapsing, sowing dread far beyond the actual casualties. Siege diaries describe men dropping shields just to cover ears, only to be brained by the next ricochet. Warfare by acoustics. Mozart would have applauded if he'd been born 4 centuries earlier and mildly homicidal.
Across the landing lies a door no taller than your chest. Stooping, you slip through and freeze. The stair beyond is cruelly steep, more ladder than staircase, each tread only as wide as 3 fingers. These are thief steps, deliberately uneven to wreck rhythm. Normal castle folk avoided them. Only messengers bearing urgent secrets braved the climb. Defenders knew their muscle memory. Any boot beat out of time signaled a stranger. The penalty? 2 crossbowmen posted at the summit, bolts already notched. By the time an invader choked down one blazing lungful, a shaft would be whickering through the dark toward ribs. Halfway up the thief's steps, a trick tread tilts. You recover, barely, but it's enough to unveil another devilry. The tilting tread also unlatches a shutter behind you, revealing your silhouette against newly kindled torchlight. Any archer below has the easiest shot of his life. Statistically, garrisons didn't need to kill many foes here. A single corpse lodged on the step created a grisly barricade no one wanted to clamber over. Climb out onto a narrow gallery, an inner parapet ringing a great hall roof. You're inside the walls now, between outer and inner skins like marrow in bone. Timber beams stretch above, and in one you spot a notch plugged with tar. That plug hides a quick-release catch for the sparrow drop. Remove it, and an entire beam pivots downward outside, dumping gravel onto attackers scaling the outer curtain. Unlike grander machicolations, the sparrow drop is stealthy. From the ground, it looks like normal carpentry until a hail of stones clatters off helmets. The beam snaps back, and defenders refill it with rubble before the next assault. Sustainable defense. Recycle your rocks. Across the gallery, light seeps through a row of eye-level loopholes. Peer out, and you glimpse the approach you climbed hours, or was it minutes, ago. But here's the magician's flourish. The loopholes are staggered, so arrows from different positions converge on one ground spot. Mathematically orchestrated murder. Medieval engineers used knotted cords as protractors, mapping lines of fire in sand trays. Later, some carved aiming grooves into stone so any conscript could align a bow and trust geometry to do the thinking. Now the gallery ducks into a swallow-neck corridor, barely shoulder-wide. A servant with bread could squeeze by, 2 armored men could not. That's deliberate, of course, the final choke point before the castle's heart. You note grooves in the floor, as if heavy objects once slid here. Those grooves carried portative barriers, waist-high carts bristling with iron spikes shoved forward to plug the passage. Contemporary accounts call them urchins. One guard could shove an urchin with his hip while hefting a pike, turning the corridor into a stab maze. Past the swallow-neck, you descend a fresh stair, clockwise this time, favoring right-handed defenders backing down. The steps vary in height, 8 inches, 12, 7. Marching in file, invaders stumble, shields rise, helmets tip. At turnings, arrow slits open like cat eyes, each aimed at stomach height, because a doubled-over raider exposes more gut than face. Brutal logic etched in limestone. You reach a gatehouse mezzanine, overlooking the main drawbridge, unseen by tourists who gawk outside. Here sits the castle's nerve center, the winch gallery. Timber wheels the height of giants anchor chains that raise or lower the bridge. But next to them, smaller drums spool rope linked to stair traps deeper inside. One good wallop on a lever, and whole sections of the interior stairs collapse in dominoes of snapping pins.
If the outer gate falls, defenders retreat, hammer the lever, and the castle swallows its own spine behind them. Historians debate whether any fortress managed to trigger a full backbreak during siege. Even unproven, the threat alone persuaded enemies to negotiate. Siege is psychology as much as stone. Notice 2 buckets of sand hanging beside the lever. Those aren't fire safety, they're timers. Burn the rope holding a bucket, it drops after the fuse length, wrenching the lever automatically. A garrison could set it, flee through a postern, and let the deserted castle annihilate intruders by puppet string. Home Alone Medieval Edition. Speaking of posterns, let's duck through one now, descending a cramped corkscrew carved straight into bedrock. Your torch throws restless shadows, the air cools. Feel the stone under palm? It's wet, not groundwater, but condensation from hidden aqueducts lining the shaft. Attackers who found this passage assumed it unused. In truth, the damp disguised faint drag marks from ore trolleys. This spiral ends in the Bloomer Furnace, where smiths smelted iron late into the night. A forge inside the wall served 2 purposes: weapons resupply in siege and heat for a fiendish stair trap above. At need, masons diverted forge smoke up narrow chimneys, venting beneath staircase treads. Iron grates heated the stone, turning the steps into scorching griddles. A mail-clad assailant cooked in his own armor, slow as stew. Contemporary letters speak of red footfalls left by knights who fled barefoot after the steel burned through their souls. But castle life wasn't endless alarms. Off-duty guards played dice in alcoves mere feet from deadly levers. To lighten their mood and keep skills sharp, captains ran betting pools. Coin to whomever could sneak past 2 traps without triggering bells. Few succeeded. The castle always won the house take. When you walk these corridors, imagine laughter echoing beside clanks. It wasn't all grim silence. It was a living organism of tension and release. Even clergy weren't exempt from design paranoia. Chapels hidden inside wall thickness used confession stairs, tiny zigzag flights whose pattern changed at each landing. Monks memorized sequences as penance. A stranger ascending incorrectly signaled eavesdropping and warranted, at minimum, detention. At worst, a quick shove sending him sliding down polished marble into a locked crypt. Forgive us our trespasses and enforce them. Take a breath. Smell has shifted again. Charred tallow and something musky. You've reached the barracks, where off-shift soldiers snore in straw pallets. They rely on one final staircase safeguard, the Echo Code. Each man carries a wooden clapper. On patrol, he raps the stair rail twice before turning any corner. The sound pattern bounces up shafts. Listening comrades know friend from foe. Disregard the code, and crossbows rise before your face breaks the torchlight. Early 2-factor once more. Rhythm plus recognition. The irony? In peacetime, these same traps endangered their makers most. Rats nibbled ropes, floods warped wood, frost cracked limestone. Every spring, masons toured the fortress, resetting beams, oiling axles, and, for morale's sake, firing the occasional dummy load of pebbles just to hear the old warhorse clear its throat. Imagine an April dawn, birdsong, scent of thawing earth, and suddenly a roar of stones in the killing drum. Villagers and fields glanced up, shrugged, castle testing day again. We could wander further. Hidden latrines that dump onto siege tunnels, mosaic floors whose tesserae mark safe stepping stones, wardrobe alcoves doubling as wall closets for archers. But your eyes are glazing like leaded church windows, and that means my job's working. If you're drifting, let the castle fade. Dream of secret stairs that climb forever, each turn carrying you deeper into rest. If you're wired for more, whisper "continue" below, and we'll crank every winch, unmask every phantom staircase till dawn crawls over the battlements.
You ease along the inner rampart, fingertips skimming damp mortar, when a draft heavy with beeswax drifts past your cheek. Someone, somewhere, has relit a candle. In a fortress of midnight corridors, that single flame feels like a pulse, proof that the castle is still awake, still scheming. Instinct tells you to trace it, so you follow the warmth, turning beneath arches whose keystones grin with gargoyles too small for any tourist to notice.
Ahead, the passage kinks left, then narrows abruptly until your shoulders graze both walls. Architects called this a wishbone throat, an embrace that forces sword arms high and shield sideways. It's disarming, literally. Yet what kills isn't the squeeze, it's the floor. A faint metallic rasp underfoot betrays the trap. Triangular iron plates arranged like fish scales all slant downhill. Stand casually and you're safe. Charge forward in iron boots and those scales act like oiled marbles, tumbling you onto your back. The steep pitch ends at a waist-high stone ledge topped with nothing more lethal than oak dowels. But anyone sliding in full harness meets that ledge sternum first. Contemporary surgeons called the resulting injuries castle cough, after the bloody sputter victims expelled in their final minutes.
Past the wishbone throat, the corridor relaxes, as if repentant, and widens into a tidy vestibule paneled with lime-washed boards. Candles glow in iron sconces, the flame you smelled before. You realize you've entered the castle's diplomatic facade, an antechamber dressed like a polite manor, so emissaries never glimpse the murder treadmill behind. Here, portraits of serene saints line the walls. Tap a frame, though, and it rings hollow. The canvases hinge outward, revealing recesses big enough to hide a man and a half-bow. Court painters were sworn to secrecy, bribed with silk, and threatened with oubliettes should they ever blab that their Madonna concealed a quarrel rack. Beneath one saint's sandal, a pin glints. Pull it, and the painting swings free, exposing a crawl space woven with rope ladders. These spiderways knit the entire keep. Everywhere a tapestry hangs, a secret path yawns behind. Children of garrison families played tag down these passages, learning every rung by heart before they could write their own names. War, after all, doesn't wait for adulthood. Slip inside, and you taste dust older than dynasties. The ladder drops you beside a slender light shaft. Moonlight filters through an arrow loop, painting stripes across a ledger table. On it lies a leather-bound codex, the shift roster for stair wardens. Each entry lists trap maintenance tasks in monkish hand. Grease scale walk plates. Replace bronze ball in gravity bell. Test blinding shutter. Margins bloom with doodles. A one-eyed rat, a knight impaled on his own lance, a crude sketch of the king's cook with an arrow through the soup tureen. Gallows humor kept the warden sane. Or close enough. You flip a page and find today's date written twice. The second copy bears a faint red X.
That means an alarm demo is scheduled tonight. Somewhere above you, sleepy guards will soon trigger mechanisms for drill. Best not be standing where debris may fall. You ascend a helical stair, this one winding anti-clockwise, favoring left-handed swordplay. The steps are granite, edges chipped into shark-tooth ridges. Attackers ascending must either lift their feet unnaturally high or risk shredding greaves. Chroniclers record entire units arriving at the battlements, bleeding from calves before the real fight even started. Halfway up, you pause at an alcove housing a stone basin the width of a helmet. Water shimmers within, reflecting torchlight into the stairwell. Pretty, but not a fountain. This is a mirror trap. Defenders crouched behind a murder slot angle a polished brass disc to beam torchlight down the stair. At the right moment, they douse the lamp, and the sudden darkness blinds foes mid-step. As pupils strain to adjust, archers loose from above. Light as weapon, darkness as bulletproof vest. You crest the stair into the lantern loft, a cedar-framed chamber perched over the great hall's vault. Square hatches pepper the floor, lantern jaws. During feasts, servants lowered glazed lanterns through these gaps, turning the ceiling into a field of fireflies. But in siege, those same lantern jaws fed different cargo, clay pots of quicklime. Shattered overheads, quicklime burned eyes, stripped skin, and poisoned cisterns below. Castle cooks kept barrels of the stuff adjacent to flour, a labeling nightmare that once led to catastrophic bread. Even mistakes became weapons. The blinded baker was drafted as living proof of lime's potency during parley, persuading besiegers to think twice. Step across the loft, and you reach a door carved with stylized knots. It leads onto the parapet roof walk, an exposed catwalk sheltered only by crenellations. Night wind bites, fluttering torch flames behind slitted shutters. Below, ravens croak, delighted by the perpetual carnage menu. Up here, architects deployed their favorite psychological trap, the false vista. Parapet stones angle outward so that from a distance, the battlements appear shorter than they are. Siege engineers misjudge height, build ladders a foot too small, and, clunk, heroes dangle helplessly as defenders jab spears into their armpits. Accounts from the Baltic Crusades tell of Teutonic knights humiliated by this optical trick, their prize ladders mocked as bishops' footstools. Wind at your back, you trace the roof walk to a square turret. Inside waits the pinwheel stair, an architectural riddle invented in Toulouse. Unlike normal spirals, its steps fan around a central pillar shaped like a screw thread. Each tread slopes inward, so footing feels steady ascending but treacherous descending. The genius: invaders retreating down are more likely to fall than those charging up. One medieval manual calls it war's one-way valve. You gingerly descend, boots skidding. Handholds jut from the pillar, but every sixth is booby-trapped to swivel. Pull the wrong peg and it spins, dropping a victim 5 feet onto spikes cunningly disguised as candle stubs. Even maintenance crews wore color-coded gloves, green to grip safe pegs, red as warning. The pinwheel empties into a windowless alcove lit by glowing coals in a brazier. Here, the castle's smoke scribes toiled. They used the coals to heat iron styluses, burning coated marks onto parchment so faint they resembled water stains. Exposed to lemon fumes, the words darkened, instant cipher. When spies infiltrated, scribes fled down the pinwheel, yanking a weighted chain. Above, hidden shutters snapped shut, sealing the stairwell and flooding it with pitch smoke from reservoirs under the roof. Few spies survived long enough to complain. Beyond the scribe cell, you squeeze through a wicket gate into the castle granary, rows of grain bins stacked like sarcophagi. Again, dual purpose, nourish and neutralize. Each bin, lined with lead sheets, could flood if defenders shattered earthen dams overhead. Picture tons of rye cascading like desert dunes, burying intruders to the neck. Those who didn't suffocate met rodents bold as house cats, trained, yes, trained, on scraps of jerky to chew any unfamiliar leather straps. Siege journals speak of grown men reduced to quivering statues, trapped waist-deep while rats gnawed their sword belts and, occasionally, fingers. At the granary's far end, a ramp lets carts roll grain outside during peacetime. During war, the ramp transforms. Pull a timber wedge and the boards collapse into a chute leading straight to the moat. A whole cart of flour becomes an improvised smoke bomb when the powder cloud meets flaming arrows. Contemporary chemism. Starch dust plus spark equals boom. Monks at Cluny condemned the practice as food blasphemy. But hungry defenders argued salvation tastes sweeter when you're alive. Slip through a side door and descend into a tunnel lit only by fireflies of quartz inset in walls. Miners embedded crystals here to catch stray lamplight and guide drunken guards whose hands were full of pails or prisoners. Inch forward and your boot nudges a length of slack rope looped across the floor. Tripwire? Almost. Step over it and nothing happens. But if 3 feet behind you a comrade steps on the rope, it tightens and tugs a bronze clapper overhead. The castle counts feet. Any group larger than 2 triggers alarms. Single spies or pairs might slip through. Squads cannot. The tunnel dead ends at a crudely carved door slab. Push and it groans onto a chamber with a ceiling so low you instinctively hunch. This is the humbling room, originally wine storage, later weaponized against overconfident knights. Iron spikes stud the ceiling at intervals matching a mailed soldier's full height. Attackers, unable to raise swords, became wrestling targets for short club-wielding defenders nicknamed moles. Chroniclers describe moles gleefully shouting rodent puns while cracking knees, dark humor sprouting in dark places. From the humbling room, a concealed latch pops open a vertical shaft fitted with iron rungs. This ventilation well also served as last-ditch escape. You climb, boots slipping on condensation. Halfway, your hand finds a loose rung. It wobbles, not by accident. Pull it fully and the rung slides out, revealing a short spike on its reverse. Replace it inverted and the next climber loses their grip in a spray of palm blood. The castle turns even ladders into interrogations. At the top, you emerge into the solar lady of the castle's private chamber. Moonlight pools over tapestries depicting unicorn hunts. Here, the architecture shifts from brutality to deceitful delicacy. Floors are waxed oak polished to mirror sheen, encouraging invaders in spurs to slip. Carpets hide gaps between boards. Step wrong and a foot breaks through into a rat-gnawed void. Court ladies practice dance steps along safe paths. Their choreographer a master mason. Notice the fireplace mantel carved with twin griffins. Press the griffin's beak and a shelf drops to reveal a velvet pouch. Dried petals, lavender, wormwood, ingredients for quiet fire. Tossed onto coals, they burn without smoke, but emit soporific fumes. Defenders could drug intruders in the solar, then reclaim the room at leisure. Some captains preferred capture over carnage. Hostages fund better repairs than corpses do. An archway leads to the wardrober, a cedar closet big enough to stable ponies. Shelves overflow with spare coat-hardies and surcoats. But the true prize is the floor. It's false, balanced on pivot stones. Pull a hidden cord behind a cloak, and half the wardrobe tilts into darkness, dumping contents and trespassers onto a linen loom platform below. Loom beams break falls just enough to keep victims alive, yet concussed. Women of the household mastered the mechanism. Chronicles praise Lady Isabel of Gisors for capturing 4 mercenaries with nothing but taffeta and nerve. Beneath the loom platform stretches the Weeper's Hallway, so called for the eerie droplets that fall from stone ribs overhead, tapping like tears. Builders installed lead gutters above, not for drainage, but to channel boil oil reserves. During siege, a servant twisted a spigot and oil trickled down inside walls, heating stone until rooms above turned into bread ovens. Attackers who survived the wardrobe plunge often cooked alive without realizing why. Archaeologists still find soot stains on upper courses, a grim shadow baked into heritage.
The hallway T-bones at a portcullis, stout as any outer gate. Beyond slats you spy torchlight dancing on water. This is the Cistern Court, an underground lake that collects roof runoff. Innovation meets intimidation. Supply lines plus psychological moat. Drown a few prisoners here and word spreads. Fear guards a gate better than iron. To open the portcullis, 3 levers must be pulled in sequence, each in a different room. Solo invaders are stymied. Residents know the pattern like a bedtime prayer.
You throw the levers and step onto a causeway skimming the cistern. Fish flicker beneath, bred intentionally. Carp feasting on mosquito larvae. Eels on waste scraps, organic filtration. But some carp grow monstrous, old as the castle, rumored to bite like dogs. Tales tell of saboteurs dragged under by whiskered jaws. Biology as bunker ally. Across the causeway rises the final stair, the King's Mercy, so called, because if invaders reached this point, surrender might still be accepted. Its steps are wide, shallow, and mercifully even. No spike plates, no tilting risers. But mercy is fleeting. Halfway up, stone blocks bear faint chisel marks. X, X, O, X. Those are mason codes for breakaway stones. During construction, masons left slim cores so a few hammer strikes could collapse the treads. In siege, defenders retreat, wall masons swing mallets, and the staircase becomes a cliff. Attackers either scramble over rubble under arrow fire or retreat down the Carp Causeway, straight into archers hidden behind murder lattices. Choice is illusion. Death merely changes costume. You crest the Mercy Stair into the keep's crown, the Star Chamber, octagonal, vault-painted midnight blue and pricked with tiny court stars. Royal astrologers once charted comets here, claiming celestial sanction for warfare. Tricks persist even in the heavens. Some stars conceal peepholes, letting bodyguards watch consultations from attic shadows. Paramoid? Perhaps. Yet poison once masqueraded as parchment dust. You can't fault a king for spying on his own sorcerer. Exhausted, you collapse on a velvet bench. Stone no longer threatens, silence does. Castles are loud beasts, creaks, drips, distant clanks. The star chamber, though, is hushed by design. Soft walls swallow echoes, so clandestine talk stays private. Sit too long, and heartbeat drums louder than voice, a reminder that solitude can be its own weapon.
You consider what we've uncovered tonight. Stairs that smoke, floors that tilt, wardrobes that swallow, carp that guard water like dragons. Every corner is a riddle, every comfort a dare. And still, we haven't explored the crypt stairs that ring like bells, or the glass steps in the alchemist's tower that shatter under iron weight, or the snow stair, marble chilled by hidden ducts until frost forms, turning ascent into ice skating above a chasm.
You wake to the hush of pre-dawn, the colorless hour when even torches hesitate, and realize you never actually slept. The star-studded vault still curves overhead, but the air feels cooler, as though someone has cracked a secret vent while you dozed. Instinct says move before the castle decides you're a fixture worth dusting permanently. So you stand, stretch aching calves, and pad toward the single pointed doorway opposite the Mercy Stair. No guard posted, no lock visible, just a slab of oak barred by nothing except superstition. Push, and hinges sigh like old men. Beyond lies a narrow gallery paneled in sycamore, smelling faintly of camphor and something sweeter. Honey? No, beeswax mixed with pitch. The walls weep resin, sealing joints from drafts, but also masking hairline seams. Architects loved dual purpose. Here, the resin hides slender copper wires running the full length of the corridor. Tug one, and the far end rattles a bell in the steward's office, an early burglar alarm. But there's a ruder surprise. Each wire winds through tiny fired clay beads packed with lamplack. If an intruder cuts the line, black dust puffs out, coating clothes like soot. Even if you escape, you advertise guilt for days. The dust stains skin until scrubbed with vinegar. You tiptoe, hands clear of the glittering tripwires, until the gallery spills into a circular stair you could almost mistake for ordinary. Smooth treads, gentle rise. A break from cruelty? Not even close. These are echo stairs, chiseled for perfect acoustics. Every footfall turns into a drumbeat, amplified through hidden masonry hollows. Defenders listening at a vent 2 floors below know precisely how many strangers climb and how fast. Worse, the echo cracks brittle mortar pellets hidden under half the treads. Step loud enough and you shatter a pellet. Its sulfur core meets iron filings and spark powder, and a whiff of gun smell fills the air. Another silent alarm. Minstrels say you can't sneak up on a memory. Here, you can't sneak up on stone. Halfway down, you detect a draft sliding upward. Follow it, and you spot a slit between stair and wall just wide enough to wedge a finger. A false step? You kneel, probe, and the entire riser tips inward, exposing a foot-deep crevasse overflowing with cobwebs. Drag your fingertip across the cavity floor, and you gather powder, fine as flour but gritty, salt mixed with nettle seeds. Vermin deterrent for castle cats? Not at all. If a boot heel plunges through, it churns seeds into flesh, causing welts so painful most soldiers tear off footwear mid-battle. A crippled assailant fights one-footed or not at all. You replace the riser and vow to tread lighter. At the staircase base, you enter a hexagonal landing paneled with knotty pine. A single arrow loop admits gray dawn and reveals carvings, overlapping fish scales incised in every board. No decoration. They're handling guides for the blindfold drill. The garrison practiced navigating this junction blackout, counting scales to orient themselves. You run a palm across 12 ridges and discover a loose scale. Twist and a latch clicks. The wall swings open like a book, revealing a spiral slide carved in granite, the Whisper Chute. Slip onto the polished stone and gravity claims you. You whirl downward, shoulders brushing cold walls, until daylight blooms below and you spill into a chamber pungent with brine and leather. The armory. Racks of crossbows line one wall. Barrels of quarrels stand like organ pipes. But this is only the public armory, showroom for quartermasters. The true stockpile hides beneath the flagged floor. Pull the ring on a central stone, tip it up, and behold a pit packed with unfamiliar weapons. Spiked chains, spring bolas, and stair fangs. Iron brackets bolted onto treads to create hasty caltrops. Each fang bears a color dot. Red means the iron's been quenched in pig blood, hardened but brittle. Yellow means oil-tempered, resilient. Wardens choose fangs according to season. Brittle spikes in freezing winter shatter under defenders' boots, leaving floor clear, whereas oil-tempered fangs bend harmlessly for allies, but skewer softer enemy footwear. Seasonal death trap fashion. Who knew?
Another ladder drops you into a warren smelling of parchment and mildew. Shelves bulge with scrolls bound in goatskin, each tagged with bone tokens. You've reached the Stair Rites Archive, the blueprint brain of the fortress. Plans for every step, ramp, and mechanism lie cataloged here. Except they don't. Blueprints are too valuable to risk fire or spies. Instead, cipher monks recorded specs as verse. Sonnets, hymns, riddles. A psalm praising Jacob's ladder actually lists rung spacing and angle. A body limerick about a maiden's curves masks radii for spiral treads. Only those taught the code can rebuild traps after siege damage. You glimpse one scroll half unrolled. 12 kisses betwixt moon and stone, wax upward, spiral left alone. Scholars argue whether verse design made castles stronger, but everyone agrees it made repairs slower, on purpose. Outsiders, even hired masons, floundered decoding, while in-house clerics kept secrets safe.
Past the archive, you step into a corridor tiled with glazed brick, sky blue above, moss green below. Pretty but treacherous. The glaze hides a thin, oily film, renewed weekly with whale blubber boiled in alum. In peacetime, it provides shine. In war, defenders tip sand into high vents. Sand on oil bricks equals instant skating rink. Attackers tumbling knock over iron trestles, never moved except during siege, the domino barricade. Historical footnotes speak of one battering ramp wild enough to slide an entire ladder crew back down a hall into their own ram cart, splintering both.
Mid-corridor stands a door secured by 9 latches, not 1, 9. Each latch different metal, bronze, steel, pewter, expanding or contracting at unique rates.
Temperature shift locks them unless a steward regularly cycles torches along the jamb. Storm a castle in winter and you'll find half its doors frozen by design. But you're inside during mild dawn. The latches slip free with effort. Door open, you confront a staircase unlike any yet. It's straight, steep, but each tread is half as deep as normal. Priest steps, they call them, forcing short paces that mimic penitent kneel walks. Defenders ascend briskly, armored foes stumble, helmets banging lintels carved low. Along the right wall, niches hold pewter sconces in the form of praying hands. Give one hand a twist, and water sluices from copper pipes embedded in stringer stones. The steps flood, sheeting downward toward invaders. Add lye from floor drains, and you have a running river of caustic soap. Accounts from the Hussite Wars describe soldiers emerging hairless and half-blind, monks' revenge for desecrated chapels. At the summit, a timber landing branches into two stairs. One ascends gently toward sunlight, one plunges into gloom. Choice is bait. The bright stair leads to a dead-end rampart with walls lined by crossbow slits. Its final step is set on springs, so when weight leaves, it pops upward, locking exit. Trapped invaders stand like ducks in an alley under bolt rain. The dark stair, meanwhile, twists 70 degrees clockwise, hugging an outer wall that resonates like a drum. Any vibration sends dust motes through peepholes. Watchers measure frequency to gauge armor weight. Too heavy a tread, and they trigger the stone blossom. 4 blocks embedded in the wall pivot out simultaneously, forcing a swordsman onto tiptoe as blades from hidden murderers jab through gaps. Everything becomes a lever.
Below, darkness awaits the pitch ladder, a narrow wooden stair coated in charcoal and resin. Unlike most traps, this one sacrifices defenders too. Once lit, flames race upward, destroying the ladder plus anyone on it. But commanders value denial over life. They'll ignite without hesitation if enemy numbers overwhelm. Ladder waste baskets of resin sit ready, lids stamped with skull insignia so no one mistakes them for tar buckets used on roofs. Earlier chronicles recount grooms misusing resin on horse bridles, fire hazard of an entirely different flavor. At last, you exit onto a loggia overlooking the outer curtain. Dawn has spilled gold on battlements. From here, you glimpse the puzzle of rooftops and turrets you've been navigating, like peering back into a maze whose walls shift when observed. But there's still the alchemist's tower you've only heard in whispers. Rumor says its stair is glass. Rumor understates. It's fused quartz, translucent, and suspended on iron chains anchored in an oculus overhead. Each tread swings slightly, calibrated to resonate at a pitch audible several floors away. Only sworn alchemists know the chord of safe passage. Mistimed steps produce dissonance and trigger powder hoppers that drop saltpeter crystals onto torches below. Instant fireworks. Some nights, townsfolk mistook these bursts for comets and prophesied doom, never realizing the fortress simply disposed of spies. You cross a footbridge, chain net sides, plank bottom. Underneath, nothing but courtyard 30 feet down. Planks alternate between oak and balsa, painted to match. Defenders memorize the path, oak only. Strangers guess. Hit balsa and weight splits it, dropping you into the yard. Archers wagering supper on how far intruders bounce. Castle life breeds macabre bookies. The footbridge ends at a wall door sleek with brass. Inside coils the snow stair, remember? Marble cooled by hidden ducts. Enter and breath crystallizes mid-air.
Treads shimmer with rime. You stamp carefully, toes outward for traction. Iron shoes freeze to stone. Defenders wore felt soles here. Attackers stuck fast become mannequins for target practice until chill or quarrel ends misery. Frozen bodies then slide down polished sluices into the moat, feeding moat pigs. Those same pigs that fatten on enemy remains, turning siege into bacon festival for victors. Past Frost Hallway, you warm suddenly in a cloistered corridor heated by hypocast flues rerouted from kitchen hearths. The thermal whiplash isn't for comfort, it's a cunning bacteria trap. Sudden heat revives dormant plague fleas, living on rats purposely introduced weeks before a projected siege. Defenders inoculated themselves with diluted Yersinia extracts. Invaders, sweaty and newly flea-bitten, succumb days later. Medieval germ warfare, centuries before microscopes. At corridor end hangs a tapestry of St. George. Behind it, a crawl space no higher than a dog. You shuffle on elbows until floor tilts and you slide into a chamber ringing like a bell. Finally, the crypt stairs hinted earlier. 32 steps descend into darkness, each carved from dolomite, so pure it sings when struck. Defenders exploit resonance. 2 guards at bottom, listening tubes pressed to walls, can map every footfall above like sonar. They swear echoes reveal not only number but morale, light-hearted steps versus desperate scrambles. Halfway down, you find a turntable step, a circular disc balanced on a central pin. Step dead center and nothing. Step slightly off and it spins, reversing you to face upward while you think you're still descending. In panic, many attackers sprint, unaware they're running back toward waiting swords. Chroniclers dub this the repentant wheel, irony thick as dungeon air. You finally reach the crypt. Candles gutter in wall cells, each light reflecting off mortared skulls. A chapel of bones, common in Europe, but here bones double as vent plugs. Pull the wrong femur and a hidden fan shaft opens, sucking air downward. Torches die, smoke blinds. More bones than breath. At crypt's rear, a stone stair climbs anew. How many levels does this behemoth possess? But steps are chiseled uneven depths on purpose, pattern repeating every 6th. Defenders memorize cadence, outsiders trip. Beneath each missized tread lurks a bronze plate attached to a lead weight. Jump the step and the plate tilts, dropping weight onto bell striker rods, tolling in towers miles away. The castle speaks in bells, gossip traveling faster than horses. The new stair opens into the infirmary loft, pungent with vinegar and tansy. Here, medics treat allies and interrogate foes in equal measure. They invented the healer's stair, which looks normal but rattles chains connected to each tread. Clink, clink, warn surgeons someone approaches with possibly plague-bearing blood. They ready lime wash and quarantine screens before the door even opens. You wander through, past cots where fevered captives mutter, and descend rope ladders to the final marvel, the siege theater. An amphitheater carved inside the curtain wall, invisible from outside. Troops gather to hear orders, but also to witness practice of stair traps. Yes, dress rehearsals. Tonight, a squad demonstrates the blinding shutter trick. Tomorrow, the resin slide. Failures become training material. See that bruise? That's why you grease the plate weekly. Survival gossip shapes better engineers. As you sit on a stone bench, a horn echoes. Shift change. Sun now fully climbs gray clouds. Time to leave before new wardens ask why a stranger roams unaccompanied. You retrace steps, heart ricocheting off ribs every time a floor creaks. Finally, you spot daylight through the sally port, slip outside, and gulp air that tastes of rain and freedom. So, after weaving through oil bricks and snow steps, echo stairs and repentant wheels, do you still envy medieval masons? Their artistry married wonder with cruelty. Their halls sang with gears and fear. Castles weren't just stone, they were thinking creatures eager to devour the inattentive. Before you venture back to modern carpets and OSHA railings, feed the moat pigs of the algorithm. Like this tale, comment on which mechanism chilled you most, and subscribe so we can dissect the alchemist's glass staircase or the drawbridge that counts hoofbeats in our next session. If your courage holds and you need part 6, type continue and we'll reopen the gatehouse where boiling oil isn't the worst surprise waiting. The clang of the portcullis fading behind you is supposed to mean safety, but the echo of its teeth still vibrates in your jaw when the quartermaster's page tugs your sleeve and whispers, "The master builder left one ascent untested." His lantern halo flickers across your face, and before you can beg a bed of straw, he's already weaving through barrels of pitch toward an archway stitched with iron vinework. You follow because curiosity holds a sharper hook than fear, and because you promised everyone watching you'd map every hidden stair before dawn. Slip under the arch and humidity kisses your cheeks. This is a bathhouse corridor, tiled in saffron and indigo mosaics that glitter like a serpent's hide. Steam curls from vents in the floor, perfumed with rosemary and chicory. Pleasant, except you know pleasant was never this architect's goal. Moist air dampens soles, making leather stick. The floor bows, sprung planks clad in tile, flexing like a drumhead under weight. The illusion of solid stone lulls trespassers until they reach the midpoint, where the planks sag an inch and trip copper rollers hidden beneath. Rollers tug braided cords that slip through wall slots and lift coral shutters 3 rooms over. By the time invaders realize the floor misbehaves, archers already notch bolts aimed through murder holes disguised as dolphin mosaics. You test one plank with a heel, it dips, and somewhere a pulley squeals. No arrows whistle, lucky you, but the page gulps. "We drained the quarrel racks yesterday," he mutters. "They'll reload before winter." You tread light as a spooked fox to the corridor's end, where a marble balustrade cups a spiral stair flickering orange from torches below. The torchlight feels wrong, though, too rosy, as if it comes from coals, not flame. Peer closer and you spot why. Every second torch is hollow, the bowl stuffed not with pitch, but fine red glass spheres containing phosphorus. When the stair resonates, say under the hammer-foot advance of armored men, the vibration fractures the glass. Phosphorus meets air, ignites, and sudden fountains of ember-red fire turn the stair into a helix of sparking serpents. Locals call it the dragon coil. Defenders know to damp leather cloaks and hug the inside rail where draft is weakest. Enemies sprint outward, directly into the flame jets. Down you go, hugging the safe side, counting steps, 13, a deliberate omen. At the 14th, stone changes texture, grit gives way to slick basalt.
Here begins the Echo Narthex, a tunnel bored so smooth you hear your heartbeat answer back. The page raises the lantern, revealing walls furred with mica that glitters like wet salt. It isn't decoration, it's sound armor. Mica scatters echoes, so a whisper lost mid-tunnel never reaches ears at either end. Good for secret conferences, bad for lost soldiers who can't even yell for help. Somewhere inside, a floor tile clicks beneath your boot, and a brass tube in the ceiling exhales chilled air scented faintly of must. The page explains. Hidden bellows pump ammonia vapor along shafts when the tile shifts. The cold forces metal plates lining an overhead cistern to contract, breaking wax seals that hold in floodwater. Given a minute more weight, those plates would snap fully, releasing a waterfall down the tunnel. Defenders upstream use slatted footbridges that let torrents pass, while enemies are shoved toward the next trap, the eel ladder.
You arrive before the flood triggers. Still, your clothes prickle with static suggestion of water. A hatch opens in the right-hand wall. Inside, a ladder shaft climbing into black. Its rungs are iron rods hammered flat on top, but sharply triangular below. Upward motion is fine, but slip a foot and blade edges carve flesh. Worse, rungs pivot on cams. Press weight for more than 2 seconds and the rod flips wholesale, pitching climbers backward. Castle guards practice climbing with rhythm. 2 seconds lift, 1 second rest on left jam, repeat. Breach troops ignorant of the drill end up Julianade.
Halfway up, you pause at an aperture where torchlight reveals graffiti scratched by some joker centuries ago. Climbed once, bled twice. You grin despite dread. Optimism is immortal. Above, a hatch wheel groans. The page forces it, and you emerge in the rookery, a timber penthouse thrumming with wing beats. Pigeons flurry, but these aren't message birds. Their claws wear hammered copper caps. When spooked, they batter intruders with sledgehammer precision. Falconers clip copper claws off every winter, then recap in spring, because migration season brings foreign beaks that might carry scrolls sewn under feathers. One tug from a copper claw tears parchment. Spycraft undone by biology turned weapon.
From rookery rafters hangs a rope net shaped like an inverted funnel. The page gestures shortest way to the circumwall. You hesitate, then rappel through scent of guano until boots contact a circular catwalk that hugs outer wall interior. Murals here depict saints pelting devils with stones, a hint about the floor. Sure enough, paving stones sit loose on pegs. Pull up one, and a chute yawns into daylight. Matriculations disguised beneath ornamental coping. Defenders drop stones or boiling brines straight down at sappers hugging the base. Architects scaled chute diameter so stones accelerate to maximum bruise but minimum ricochet. Scientific sadism.
Farther along catwalk, rail posts double as levers. Tilt any post outward and a section of the circumwall jettisons. Springboards launch oak beams outward like spear fence, impaling ladders. After each deployment, resetting requires a team of carpenters 2 days. Still worth it for dramatic ladder carnage that sours besiegers' breakfasts. Chronicles described one siege where attackers survived the spear cascade only to find beams spiked with rotting offal. The smell alone forced retreat. You exit catwalk via a descending ramp bored at such a shallow angle you almost don't notice slope.
That's by design. Descending troops gain speed they fail to gauge. Ramp ends abruptly in a door only 5 feet high. Tall enemies sprinting down crack skulls on the lintel. Instant decapitation if helms are off. Locals nickname it the courtesy door because it teaches guests to bow. A jester's joke wrought in limestone. Duck through and plunge into sulphurous darkness broken by dull crimson glow. Heart leaps, forge level. Smiths hammer chain links that, when cooled, will anchor the gravity counterweights of port stairs. Here, steps can vanish wholly, drawn up like window blinds to create a yawning pit. Chains feed over massive drums wound with rawhide, greased with bear fat. When alarm horns bray, smiths trigger drum dogs. Steps rise in seconds, sending any mid-climb tumbling. To ensure traders among garrison can't sabotage, drum release chords change daily on a schedule memorized only by 2 monks. One rumor claims missing monk shifts are explained by quicklime in the ash pits. Fail the mnemonic pest and you dissolve quietly. The page crosses himself, you mimic just in case. Forge heat wilts lungs. You duck into a venting corridor lined with water pipes, early fire suppression. Yet pipes hold a second secret. Hollow lead tubes for speaking, whisper pipes, letting commanders coordinate trap activation across towers. Put ear to one and you catch words bouncing like ghosts. Sunset muster, arch lapis. Garbled code, perhaps, but evidence of living defense system. The corridor ends at a platform above the Grand Gallery, a place you thought purely ceremonial. But now you see ceiling coffers rigged with counterweighted chandeliers filled not with candles but quartz crystals. During siege, defenders pour oil over the crystals, ignite wicks beneath, and swing chandeliers on cables. The crystals refract flame into blinding strobes. Dazzled invaders see phantom staircases painted in light, step toward them, and fall from mezzanines. Light itself weaponized. A servant appears offering stale rye and goat cheese. You decline, but accept water skin spiked with juniper, castle isotonic. Hydration matters because next stair is the bloodfall. Steps spaced precisely for a tall stride, but every 5th tread shorter by a thumb's breadth, promoting stumble. Walls here studded with porcupine quills coated in resin. Trip forward, meet quills, stick like flypaper. Defenders collect trapped foes later, half flayed. You pass safely by counting treads aloud, though page quiets you. Sound travels upward and may prime the organ stair. That marvel waits ahead, a stone staircase doubling as pipe organ, each step a bellows. Soldiers march in sync to pump air through reeds. Castle trumpets itself alive. But invert the organ keys, expose a flank, and musicians redirect airflow through vinegar-soaked wool, blasting noxious acid mist downward. Sing for supper, they say. Past the organ vestibule slopes the manger stair, an enclosed ramp carpeted in straw. Horses, yes. During last siege, defenders rushed cavalry to the upper yard via this ramp, then tore out straw plugs to expose nail beds so enemy chargers refused ascent. In peacetime, straw muffles hoof echo, hiding troop movements from spies outside. You kneel, pluck a straw stalk, its hollow filled with quicklime dust. Toss into puddle and it hisses, proving each straw a tiny chemical trap. Scatter them on wet ground and you raise caustic haze. Twilight now bleeds through embrasures. You've been spelunking stairs for nearly a full day. Still the page prods. One last marvel, the librarian's corkscrew. Deep in Scriptorium Tower, a wood spiral stair turns around a stationary pole carved with runes. Each rune masks a brass catch engaging with a cam under every 10th step. Librarians rotate the pole quarterly. Misaligned catches jam the staircase, so every tread becomes free-floating wedge. To re-engage, you must chant a psalm whose syllable count equals prime numbers mapping runes. Holy math puzzle! You attempt but fail, and tread tilts, nearly pitching you off before page locks mechanism with a hex wrench. Safely down, you land amid shelves heavy with chained tomes. Floor mosaic here depicts Icarus falling, a hint, the wax stair, a steep vertical ladder smeared with beeswax that melts if torches approach, forcing climbers to choose between darkness and slippery rungs. Scholars ascend by moonlit windows only, trusting white light won't liquefy wax. Imagine sacking knowledge under a deadline, your own torch weaponizing the ladder against you. At base of wax ladder, a simple oak door opens to the courtyard again. Same courtyard where dawn greeted you, but now washed amber by sunset. You've walked circles stacked atop spirals inside a single fortress organism. Exhausted, you slump against a cistern and glance at the page. He bows. Builder's ledger nearly empty, but one secret remains, he says. It's buried under the chapel, but only disclosed at matins. Your viewers love a cliffhanger. You love a bed. But duty is a staircase too. You step or you stall. Velvet dark before dawn, the courtyard sings with crickets the color of coal dust, and candle flames tremble behind arrow slits like sleepy eyes just cracking open. You've barely swallowed 2 gulps of sour ale when the page returns wrapped in a cloak that smells of incense and wet limestone. No lantern this time, only a twig of consecrated yew smoldering at the tip. The chapel's awake, he whispers. If we're late, the stones seal again till next equinox. Your fingers remember every blister from last night's labyrinth of murder stairs, yet curiosity surges like a second heartbeat. You promised the watchers one final descent, and who abandons an oath on the threshold of legend? Past the cloister arcade, votive lamps paint the nave in bars of honeyed light. Monks chant tierce early today, voices weaving Latin threads so thin they could slice a conscience. But the abbot pauses when he sees you, offers neither greeting nor scold. Instead, he flips a pew bench by its iron rings. Carved beneath, a hollow recess lined with velvet holds a granite cube no bigger than a loaf. Spinal grooves run its faces, each groove filled with crimson wax. Wordlessly, he places the cube in your palms, heavy, cold, humming faint as a beehive, and nods toward the high altar. The altar slab is porphyry, 5 inches thick, older than the kingdom it sanctifies. At first glance, it's seamless, yet the cube's grooves match relief lines hidden in the stone. Seat the cube, twist thrice sunward. Wax seals snap with the smell of myrrh, and an audible sigh unlatches a section of floor behind the reredos. A staircase yawns downward, wide at the mouth, narrowing until darkness swallows it. No torch allowed, the abbot croaks. Only the cube's faint inner glow, which pulses brighter once the slab shifts back into place overhead, locking you inside earth like a letter in wax. Step 1 is ivory inlaid with jet.
Step 2, solid U. Step 3, hammered bronze. Materials alternate with no pattern a mortal mason would waste time solving. Each tread clicks beneath your boot, and on the fourth click, the cube answers with a softer click of its own. The staircase is listening, measuring, judging. Too heavy a footfall and the cube dims. Too light and it flares hot enough to singe skin. Calibration of humility. Descend with balanced heart or risk blindness. Somewhere below, water drips but doesn't echo, proof that walls curve inward, swallowing sound like lungs. After 51 steps, the cube flashes each seventh. The passage broadens into a vestibule paved in luminescent marble. Veins of mineral phosphor glow pale green, pooling light around a stone lectern. Atop the lectern rests a codex bound in chainmail, opened to an illumination of Jacob's ladder bending like a Mobius strip. But the ladder's rungs aren't wood, they're spiral staircases devouring themselves tail first. Beneath the illustration, a marginal note in minute Gothic script reads, "Omnes scala duplex est." Every stair is double. Your spine prickles. The architect you've been chasing was part theologian, part astronomer, part sadist, as comfortable with metaphysics as with murder holes. Beyond the lectern stretches a corridor lined with statues of angels whose wings case scissor blades freshly oiled. They face each other across the narrow path, leaving a channel just wide enough for your shoulders. The page, pale, trembling, utters the only rule: no hesitation. You commit. 4 strides in, floor tiles depress under your weight, and bronze feathers whip outward in a blur. Not at you, behind you, severing any retreat. The angels are less guardians than ushers, forbidding second thoughts. Cold draft brushes your neck. All air now flows forward, an invisible hand shoving pilgrims ahead. Corridor lamplight emerges without flame, glass tubes filamented by tiny fireflies bred for this prison. Their glow ripples whenever the cube pulses, as though they too obey its rhythm. Walls soon slope inward, funneling into a shaft where staircases coil clockwise down an abyss. You know the trick. Clockwise descent favors right-handed sword-bearers defending upward. But here treads are reversed halfway, forcing rhythm changes mid-flight, perfect for tripping men in armor laden with panic. Yet metal footplates built into balusters pivot under deliberate heel pressure, opening or sealing gaps 2 stories below. It dawns that this is not a death trap. It is a labyrinthic instrument, a playable staircase, where each tread is both note and blade. The page urges you to test one plate. You press, and distant gears whine. Far beneath, stone grinds against stone, perhaps sealing off some root or birthing another. Every step you play edits the maze in real time. Echoes drift up. Maybe your watchers above hear those gears and wonder what verse you compose. For a breath, you imagine broadcasting this on the channel. Smash that like if you can name this tune in 3 blood-curdling clanks. 1/2 rotations plunge you into cavern heat. Sulfur smooths the air. Torches ignite spontaneously on wall brackets. Phosphorus trick again. At the center of this geothermal throat lies a circular dais etched with concentric stair glyphs. Here the cube fits a spire socket, locking you in place, and the floor begins to rise, elevator-like, though you feel no mechanism.
Walls peel upward, revealing not bedrock but polished mirror panels reflecting infinite versions of you ascending, descending, folding. The architect's ultimate message unfurls. A stair is a promise that motion proceeds forever, or until mortality breaks the loop. Platform halts inside a chamber painted midnight blue, ceiling stabbed with crystal stars. Tread gently. Each crystal ceiling point corresponds to a floor tile of equal hardness. Step on Orion's belt tile, a low melodic chime rings. Step on Antares, and vents exhale cold lavender mist. Step on the wrong, unnamed star, and the floor drops half an inch, then resets, warning soft but absolute. The pattern is celestial navigation. Copy the sailor's path across northern seas in midwinter. Together you trace it, tile by tile, until a door shaped like half-moon unlatches. The room beyond is breath-stealing. A spiral staircase carved entirely from translucent obsidian, suspended by nothing visible. Each tread floats half an inch apart, threaded on an unseen axis, likely magnetite columns masked as air. Touching any riser sets it vibrating with low organ notes. To climb is to play dirge. To descend, jubilate. You need jubilate. So downward you harmonize, notes bounding like bells of Easter Vigil. Halfway, you glimpse shadows galloping across obsidian. Echoes of prior climbers? Or watchers above following via mirror periscopes embedded in risers? Hard to say. Paranoia is part of the tune. Stair empties into library circular as a well. Codices on pendulum shelves sway gently. Each book chained not to desk but to counterweights in the floor. Remove one and a hidden step somewhere retracts. Put it back and step reappears. Knowledge equals footing here. Steal wisdom, lose ground. Central reading pit hosts a single stone chair with grooves worn by restless years. On the seat rests a skeletal hand clutching quill. He sits forever writing on slate that erases itself every hour. Perhaps the architect's apprentice, testing mechanisms until body failed but trap persisted. The page murmurs a prayer. You place a finger on the quill's feather and feel faint movement. Still writing. You notice spiral grooves cut into the library walls, matching the cube's pattern. But the cube now rests far above in the spire socket. Without it, library groove system slumbers. Yet a backup exists. The skeleton's quill tip is crystal-shaped exactly like cube grooves. Align it within a wall slot. Shelves cease swinging, and a new stair cracks open behind the chair. A narrow chute dropping steep into black, saturated with cold. Slide down belly first, hands braced on polished oak. Friction burns palms until chute ends abruptly on a velvet pad inside what feels like a coffin. You push lid, it swings, and you're kneeling at the altar back in chapel, just as sunrise paints stained glass saints on polished floor. Entire loop completed. The stair that leads nowhere and everywhere deposits travelers at sacred ground. Minds scrambled but bodies intact, if lucky. The abbot stands beside the altar, cube back in his hands. He smiles faintly, proclaiming quest achieved. Master Builder believed holiness hides in hazard. Only fearfully structured motion can jar souls awake, he recites. He nods to the congregation assembling for lauds. Craftsmen, pages, smiths, monks, even the pigeons cooing in rafters. They will remember what you learned, that every stair is sermon.
You step outside where dawn's first heat warms stone scourged by last night's chills. Reflection dawns thicker than armor. Traps served not solely to shred invaders, but to teach defenders discipline. Each mechanism a mnemonic, each peril a parable. And perhaps, dear viewers, the same is true for us. Algorithms, deadlines, and your own restless insomnia are today's hidden stairs. Navigate them with grace, and you emerge wiser. Stumble, and you're just another skeleton copying code into the void.
So here we close the loop of 7 vigils. If you've trudged every riser with me, from crooked minstrel steps to organ bellows, lava breath corridors to mirror constellations, do the ritual. Hush the room, click subscribe like setting a cube into its altar. Ring the notification bell so echoes reach you next time a hidden door creaks. Comment below which death trap felt strangely merciful and which moral you'll pocket for Monday morning.
I leave you with a final ward, a staircase you carry inside your chest. Each beat is a tread, each breath a landing. Treat it like a castle architect would. Fortify with courage, booby-trap against despair, and carve secret passages for joy to sneak in. Sleep now, guardians of the night stair. May your dreams be winding but safe, and may morning find you exactly where you began, yet somehow higher.